And today's broadcast is brought to you by Eclectic Horseman Magazine. Stay tuned for Eclectic Conversations hosted by Emily Kitching.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Ali Cornish to visit a little bit about Rein Media and much more. So nice to finally get to visit with you, Ali. Tell me a little bit about orient us in the horse world, what you're doing right now.
Okay. Well, yes, thank you for having me here. As we kind of just talked about, our paths always just barely missing each other, so not quite crossing. So this is really a fun opportunity. So yeah, we're crazy. I think like anybody else in the horse world, like as you can see, Noah couldn't be here today, but that's fine. That's kind of how our lives go right now. So we live in Southern Oregon. We made this move, oh my gosh, I think it was 8 years ago. Is that right? Yeah. 8 years ago, 2016, we moved up here to Southern Oregon, and not really a hub for a lot of horse activity. You know, there's a lot of people with horses, but it's not a hot spot, I would say. But we've loved that transition, and it allows both Noah and I to kind of do what we each do respectively. Like we have a little bit different positions within the horse world. I'm sure as you're more familiar, I'm sure, with Noah. I think most probably your audience will know Noah and very, very well. He spent a lot of time on the road with Buck and doing that. So he's a very familiar face. But yeah, so I mean, we're here. We have Noah, obviously starts colts and works with some problem horses. And then I have a small group of clientele, amateurs mostly. They have horses, so I do more hunter jumper. But I've really taken a step back from horse showing a lot. And, we're only doing a handful this year and really expanding our horizons and really kicking this company, Noah's my company, Rein Media off. And that for us, I think, is very much a passion project. Been a very interesting road, I think, as a lot of business owners do to get to where they are. But essentially, we like to say it was kind of born out of necessity. It's a online equine education solution, essentially, like, high level, that's what it is. And we basically felt like their times are changing, right? I mean, we rely on like even what we're doing right now. This would have never been possible. So technology is the future, but so much of the horse world is very archaic, right? And so and I think a lot of the clientele that we see struggles with, they don't maybe identify with like a trainer or a bigger barn. And so what's their solution? I mean, where do they go? And more importantly, who do they trust?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we've seen things, obviously, like just things are expensive. So getting to clinics, you saw COVID, a lot of people didn't have those resources because nothing could happen. And so it's like, oh my gosh, what happens in these situations? And so that really kicked it off for us to make this solution. And it's exciting. It's growing. It's a lot of work. It's definitely a labor of love. But that's kind of the premise of, Rein Media. And I think the high level of what we're currently, doing within the horse industry.
And so just like walk us through the things you offer. So you've got like a library of videos, and just give folks a little bit of an idea of what they're going to find in those materials.
Yeah, so essentially we have kind of a pay-per-view solution and then also a library. And our thought behind that was that when you're a member, you get full access to what we call the Rein Media Library, and it's a growing library of videos and educational. I mean, it's all educational videos. They're not all riding. There's a lot of groundwork in there. There's a lot of, you're going to start seeing some different stuff coming out, but just like program education, management education, there's going to be veterinary stuff in there. So really just that everything you need to know knowledge. So that's in our library, and you have access to that if you're a member, like complete access. We don't ever take videos off. We're closing in on 200 videos in there. So it's pretty robust. I mean, there's a lot of hours. yeah, there's a lot of hours of footage in there. And then our pay-per-view solution, you know, was really interesting. We kind of started with that. You know, I think like with a lot of businesses, we weren't really 100% sure how we were going to take this forward, like what that looked like. And so we did a lot of pay-per-view. That actually is going to continue to grow. It's kind of stalled for us a little bit, but what's so amazing about the pay-per-view is that you don't have to be a member. So if you're really interested in just one thing, or, you know, like there's one partner of ours that you really, really love and they have something on this and you don't feel like you're going to benefit so much from the membership, or you want a taste of it first, say, you know, you could buy into the pay-per-view event. And so that's really nice because that's nestled outside of the library. It's a standalone, you know, event more or less, and that can be completely separate. We are really trying, you know, to curate like a community feel within our library. And I think it's really exciting, you know, on the backside, I do most of the back end work, and we have people all over the world that are members. And that's just so cool to me because, I mean, you know, we're a self-funded company to the more or less, and we've, you know, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. And we haven't had, you know, massive budgets to market and all of that. So just to see that that need is kind of everywhere is really, I think, it's fun and it's uniting in a sense, you know? So yeah, I think that's, and the one other thing about our platform is that, you know, we never intended it to be like just for ourselves. You know, I kind of like to think of it almost like you would do a cult, like you've got to give it the foundation, and that foundation is us as business owners really figuring out how we take it forward and how it best serves people. But we're really excited to start branching out and doing, you know, just more partnerships, professional partnerships, and really giving people the opportunity to get themselves out there. You know, one of our biggest things is like just really mutually beneficial business, like truly. And, you know, whether you're not feeling there's one side taking advantage of the other side. And I think we feel that a lot in the horse industry. And especially, I mean, as you know, we rely on our physical ability to be able to pay the bills. And like, what happens if we can't do that? We do work more or less in a luxury-based industry. Like, we have to be able to diversify. And so I think being able to support that for other professionals where they don't have to go spend as much time and money as we did to figure out how to do it, but offer that platform for like-minded people is really, really exciting, and where we see this going.
Yeah, cool. Can you give us some examples of some of the, like the pay-per-view, like the live broadcasting, like that just gives me a stomach ache just even thinking about that stress. But tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. The most fun part and challenging part, and I wish Noah was here to talk about this a little bit, but was definitely we have multiple different ways that we film the content, but when we have done a live feed, it's with professional film crew, multiple people, and that had never filmed horses. So
I know how that goes.
Yeah. And, you know, we're looking for something like very specific. And so, yeah, we've both taken turns, you know, kind of being behind the switchboard and calling shots. But that's, I think, one of the coolest things about the content is that we're really in the driver's seat. We empower our partners, which you'll see a little bit more in the future. Like they'll, you know, we won't be behind the camera and controlling that as we move forward. It's really about helping other people do that. But, you know, for the stuff that's on right now, and especially any bigger event in the future, yeah, we were calling those shots, and it was a very chaotic. I remember we were filming once and we're like, wow, this internet is amazing. Like, we can't believe it. And then we get like, the casino security is like, what are you guys doing on this internet? You're like, we're like, you guys are the ones that put it up, you know, what are you talking about? And apparently it was like unprotected into like their slot machines. We're like, we're just trying to broadcast clinic. We're not trying to get into your slot machines or anything. So there's all sorts of, and as you learn, I'm sure you've experienced this, is just like you have plan A, B, C, D, E, because nothing ever goes as planned and something glitches or, and so you just have to be prepared, roll with it. But it's been a really fun experience. And the footage is honestly, it's really cool. It's excellent. I think one of the things that we've always made a commitment to, and we always will, is it's completely transparent. Like, we don't edit our footage. Yes, we edit it. We put our watermark on it. We might put an intro or an exit on it, but we do not cut anything out of it. And I think that's pretty unique. I don't think a lot of providers do that. I think that's something that we've always really wanted to do, because we want people to be able to think it's real. Like, this is what you're struggling with. This is, if you have a horse like this, like, or you're challenged this way with your ride, like, this is how you work through it. And so, yeah, all of that being said, it does make for sometimes, especially in those live situations. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about some of the partners that you've worked with in the past, just to give us a sense of like the breadth of who you're working with?
Yes, for sure. So within our library, you're going to find a definitely decent amount of footage from Isaac Johnson and at Rock and X in their place in Oklahoma. We've kind of, he's been along for this ride. Noah knows Isaac, obviously. From way back when they were both on the road with Buck. And so that's kind of been a fun evolution, I think, to watch everyone gain their independence and, do their own thing. And so there's a lot from Isaac in there. And he's done quite a bit of really cool stuff. Like, they filmed, they went over to Hawaii and did a colt starting. And so there's a whole series on, like, it was like 10 colts or 15 colts or something. So they follow over like the 4 days that they were doing that. All sorts of, we do different formats. So sometimes there's like a series of following something along, like the evolution, maybe how a horse is to like saddle or groundwork or roping legs. And then there will be super short format stuff of like how to safely bridle your horse. So we try to cover all those bases. We have some other footage in there from Kyle Noyce. He's really, really cool. He's up and coming, I think, in the national like rein cow horse scene. And so we'll, and then obviously Noah's got stuff in there. I've got stuff in there. We've got a little bit of stuff from one of our sports medicine vets, and we're going to start seeing more vet content coming through. And it's definitely, as it stands right now, it's much more Western based. It's very, heavy in the Western discipline, I would say. There's some English stuff, but we're moving forward with a much more breadth of diversity within the library, and that's what we're really excited about. But yeah, I think we've tried to find this good marriage between, most people need a lot of foundation help, and just like the basics, but then also putting some stuff in there that will carry you through more sophisticated movements and exercises. So it's all across the board. There's a lot in there.
Yeah. So then I was looking on your website, and so you also have like your blog and your podcast. So like you've got some different like modalities of sharing information.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about like maybe some of the strengths that you see in each of those, or why the different formats?
Yes. So this is the part that I like to kind of nerd out on a little bit. And what's interesting is that I don't know, my background is obviously so heavily like horses and the horse business, but as we started this, really having to educate myself in much more like business and marketing and how we do that. And so the biggest thing, again, kind of our what we put forward is accessibility. And so I think through the Leading Rein, which is our podcast, and through our blog, we're able to make some information accessible. So it's, you're not going to get the in-depth experience that you would get inside the membership or by purchasing a pay-per-view, but you certainly are going to get a feel for the type of knowledge that we hope to share. And so that's honestly like our biggest, or one of our biggest reasons. There's obviously just the marketing side of it, where we can try to get different, people absorb information differently. In the horse world, we know a lot of people spend a lot of time driving.
Yep.
So that was a big reason behind the podcast, and really was just for some interesting conversations. We put the podcast on hold last year because it was so much work and we had to really prioritize, but we are not like putting that down forever. It will come back. We have a lot of plans for it. And honestly, it was actually, I think, one of our most popular pieces of the business. People really, really liked that information. And we tried to get all, just different people, different topics, and talk through different things. So that was really fun. And yeah, and like the blog, our whole thing behind that, aside from just marketing, is we do tie it into information that we have. And futuristically, our plans are to bring, partners and support other people who we really admire and respect their practices, and just try to mutually, again, kind of be mutually beneficial in that sharing of knowledge and that accessibility, and not only put our stuff out there, but try to, I don't know, I always like to say, kind of cross-pollinate with other people.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And I always feel like we have more in common, like, it's like there's more commonality than not. And like everybody benefits when everybody benefits, kind of thing. So.
Oh, totally. I was just listening to this, sitting in on a call and with a not horse marketing company. And he was like, we like to say collaborate, don't compete. And I was like, man, I just wish that more people kind of took that approach and it wasn't viewed as a competition, but more of a collaboration.
Yeah. Well, and especially when, I don't know, like the end goal is for horses to be happier because their people are educated. It's like,
Right.
Yeah, we're all wanting this positive thing. So let's all work together.
Totally. It's really interesting. I think one thing that I've observed, my background being really English, but also, slipping in, like I'll get in my Western saddle, but I'm in my breeches and boots. And like, it's, it's different. It's not, I think the horse world can act a little bit like each discipline is, it's almost like a religion. It's so, people are so committed to what they do and the people they follow or idolize. And, I think the more I've seen, at least, and the more exposure I've gained, I think that we all have more in common than we think we do, like you were just saying. And I think it's much more about the place we're coming from and the ultimate goals with our horses than maybe the exact technique used to achieve it. And I hope that becomes a much more common practice or just mentality among horse owners, because I think we could all probably learn a lot more if we had that, but we'll see.
Yeah, here. Very good. Well, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got your start in the horse world and now or where you are now. Take us back to how you got started.
Well, my mom, I'm sure, Tina Cornish, I'm sure Tina James, a lot of people know her, especially from the Buck movie. They're always like, she had the really white teeth. So they should be on an Orbit commercial. But she's super, she's been in the horse world her entire life. And so Noah and I both just grew up that way. Like she has a million animals all the time. We grew up with dogs and horses and donkeys, everything. And so we were very fortunate. And so I've been riding since I was, I think, 18 months old. She just put us on horses and that was that. I always knew that's what I wanted to do. Noah found it. He actually got grounded, and that was why she made him go learn how to open and close a gate on a horse that was impatient, because he had no patience. He was like in 5th grade. But I always knew I wanted to ride. And so I never wanted to dance or do anything else. It was like, I just want my ponies. And she, we did everything ourselves. And she was really great at just being resourceful and connecting, networking. And she's hosted, Bucks Connect. I was actually thinking about this before the call, but I think it's like 20 plus years. Since the 2000s, which is crazy to think that it's that long now. But so she's very connected, and she's not afraid to go make a connection, I guess I would say. Like if she doesn't have it, she's going to go make it. So Noah and I both are very lucky that that's our background. Like we didn't come from a lot of money. We weren't able to go like buy all the horse flesh and go do every single thing. But we came from, a family that was very willing to like, instilled in us to like push us. And then also like my mom, having that network and resources. So for me, that's kind of how I started, obviously predominantly in the hunter jumper world. And through high school, I just showed like that. I knew I didn't want to go to college. My dad was not happy with me about that. I always told Noah, I was like, I broke our parents in for you. But I graduated a year early because he wouldn't agree to let me do a gap year. So I was like, fine, I'll just graduate early and go work. And I actually met Melanie. Buck for years had been saying, like, telling my mom, you've got to meet Melanie. You've got to get Ali connected with Melanie. And just like the horse world does, we never crossed paths. And Melanie launched the Emerging Athletes program. When she started it. And so I applied for that. I was, oh my God, I don't know, 15 or 16 or something. And I got in. That was the first time we met her. And so I did did it for 2 years, made it to like the national finals both times. And it was wonderful. It was such a great experience. And that was the first time getting to meet her. And then that, I mean, honestly, in a very roundabout way, really launched my career, because even though I didn't win it or anything like that, it was just the connections that were made. And she had Peter Wild, who is a phenomenal coach and teacher and Olympic medalist, and he did the finals. She had him coaching the finals, and we were flying home. We were in Buffalo, New York, flying home, and I just looked at my mom. I was like, I loved riding with Peter. Like that's everything that like I want to do, And she was like, all right, well, email him. And I was like, really? Email him. I was like, okay. So I was just in the airport. I just emailed him like, I had a great time. I'd love to be a working student. And he emailed me right back and he was like, can you come to Florida? And I was like,
sure.
Will you let me go to Florida for 4 months by myself at 16? They were like, sure. So that was really the start of it. It was just kind of that first step of really, and at that point I had been like working for other people, and my parents would send me off and I'd go ride horses and get to show, because that's how I got to do it, but I spent circuit in Florida with Peter, and then that really just kind of launched. I mean, he was still based in Europe at that time, and then I went to Europe for a little bit that summer and worked for him, and that just really like pushed to the next level in terms of my exposure. I got to work with, I think, one of the most influential people I've ever worked with. Her name was Caroline, and she ran Peter's barn. Basically, she was his head groom. And I had never met someone. I mean, I always groomed my own horses and managed my own horses, but I don't know if people like, until you meet someone that like turns out Olympic level horses, do you really understand like what goes into that? And so it was so much. It was so interesting. And then I moved back to New York when he moved back to the US and his base. And then I really burned out. I kind of have been going nonstop. And I think with getting a high level of exposure, I guess I want to be like delicate the way that I say it, but you get a big viewpoint into like really how the industry operates. Because you're just seeing everybody at that level. You're not just, in a bubble anymore. And it was so disheartening, I think, to see how some of these horses were expected to go and to function, and how they were being managed by other professionals. And when you just got to see that and you saw it every day, and it just was like, oh my God, like, what are we doing here? And I just remember this moment of like, okay, like I can work here and do this, but like if this is what it takes to be at the top level and play ball at the top level, like I don't know if that's for me. Like I don't think I have the stomach for it, And I really, I mean, I just burned out. There was a moment there where I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like this is too much. And so then I moved back, and I just back to the West Coast, took a big break, and found a great family who I'd known that just wanted their kid to learn how to ride, and worked for them. And that's kind of was the catalyst to everything that we have now. But yeah, I think that burnout moment was something that people probably, I don't think, talk about too much in the horse world, but I think a lot of people experience. So I know it was a big point for me, and honestly, a big reason why we try to do like through Rein Media and all these different things to just diversify and help people, because I think there's a lot of it.
Okay, I have like 5 different lines of questions that I want to go. So like, okay, where to go? So like, I want to be like, so seeing the industry from that side,
Yeah.
and like, and I was a dressage working student for a while, so
Okay.
like I wasn't at that level, but I
You see it.
sort of have a feeling of what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Like, I mean, you have to be hopeful that there's a possibility of change, or
Yeah.
you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Right.
But are you really hopeful that like, do you really think, I mean, like, do you think that the choices that people make, like, do you think that there is a chance of changing their thought process about it? Or is it always sort of a losing, like sort of a downer question, but
Yeah,
like,
no, it's a great question. You know, it's funny. I kind of feel the same way about politics. It's so in my wholehearted opinion, I really think the visible part of the industry won't change until it doesn't win. I think
Mhm.
that until drugging horses and lunging horses and, you know, riding in gimmicks to an extreme extent doesn't result in a win, I don't really have a lot of hope that the industry is going to change on the visible level.
Mhm.
Now, what I think on the flip side of that is that I think that what we see, that visible level of the industry, is such a small percentage of it. And I think that we can forget that because that's what's in front of our face. That's what's making headlines.
Mhm.
But it's not, I mean, at least in the hunter jumper world, I mean, it's like, it's not even a reality. Like when you walk into a horse show, I mean, the amount of money that it costs now to not only buy horses, but have horses, compete horses. I mean, it's crazy. You're not walking amongst the majority of people, right? So you're kind of in this warped reality. So I think that, yeah, I think from a very visible, like competitive standpoint, until those methods aren't resulting in high levels of success, you're just not going to see people teaching it another way. Like why would you? You know, we're going to continue to show babies when they're too young and do stuff because it's money, right? At the end of the day, it's all money and people are greedy and that's what happens. But I think if we have the power to change one person's decision-making process, or even when you like string it back and or pull it back and you look at like the amateur or the mom that doesn't know much about horses, but we give them a resource and empower them to ask the right questions, maybe we start to make a change of like, hey, this doesn't like feel quite right to me. Or can we do it this way? I think there's definitely always hope for change. I just think sometimes to make the change, we change, like, I think we have to shift our perspective on what we're trying to change.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my transparent thoughts on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's like, I mean, like I've been trying to share good horsemanship since the 90s, like,
Yeah.
you know, and I used to always feel like, you know, if there was just, it's just about access to information. Like I just need to get the content out there. But now, I mean, the content is everywhere. Like you can find good information if you have a desire to find it. And that's the part that I'm always like, what is it in people that recognizes good horsemanship and it resonates with them in a way that they're like, I need more of that in my life.
Right.
And that's a question I still try and answer every day.
Yeah, I don't, you know, it's so interesting because I think there's so many, like you were saying, there's so many things that feed it. I think one thing that we see so much with horses is like people almost, like you'll talk to the most, you know, intelligent person, and then you'll get them around horses and their trainer, and you're like, what happened? What happened? Where's our brain? Like, what's going on here? And I think, you know, it's really fascinating. I think that, you know, subconsciously people are preyed upon because their emotions are so high, and because maybe they are a bit out of water and they don't, you know, they're out in the deep end and they don't know. Like that was really a big realization with Rein Media specifically, was like, okay, so there's good information, but like, how do these people know what good information is? Like if they came in, like, let's say, I'm a mom and my kid's 4 and I've never been around a horse in my life. And I meet this person that my friend referred and they're telling me all this stuff. Like, I mean, unless it's like really bad, how do you know it's not good?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like you said, kind of trying to figure out how people weigh that, I think it's a really tough, like, I think it's a tough battle. And I think I don't know exactly why some people, I think it has to do, a lot with like emotion and their introduction into it. But I think it comes down to feel too. I feel like people who have struggled a lot more are way more willing for change. Like if you've never really had a problem, like even if it's not great, then what's your incentive to kind of change something, So I don't know. Like I think it's a really interesting it's a really interesting like human piece of this that is very much a variable.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. Okay. That's a good answer. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you was like, why jumping? Like what
Yeah.
about jumping like sparked your interest? How did you go down that path?
So I think it was kind of like that's the field more or less the discipline my mom was in. So I think that was just very natural, like it came easy. But obviously, like that wasn't what Noah did, right? So I think for me, there was such an art to it and such a like a refinement that was needed. And I think it also helped that like I just had horses who I adored. So like that was what they could do and did, and that's what I did. I'm actually really not a competitive person. Like at all. Like it makes me a horrible competitor, like especially in like the jumpers. It's like if my horse feels a little like I will never sacrifice my horse for a ribbon. And I remember like I would come out and be like, my coach, Jeff Cook, who coached me so much, like as a professional still, he's amazing. And I would always like, I was never that fast when I would ride. And I would be like, Jeff, I was fast. And he's like, you were acceptable. And I was like, my eyes were watering. It was fast, But I don't know. I just love it. I love the intricacy of it. I love, the art form of it. And I think for me, like my horses, I've had wonderful horses, but they've all been quirky and had problems and mostly. And so getting them to a point where they loved their job again and loved doing it was really special. So I don't know. I think I don't know if I chose jumping or jumping kind of chose me based on like my life and just the way I came into riding, but I love it. It's interesting now though. I still love jumping and I love that for my clients and helping them. But I'm definitely, not just at an interesting place with the industry where it's like, I don't know. I'm like, I think I might like to have a quarter horse, not a warm blood. Like I have my warm blood baby, so that's fine. But it's just, I don't know. You just evolve a little bit and
Yeah,
change.
they're all fun in their own way for sure.
Totally. Don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to change your mind.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about a little bit more in depth is the working student experience, because I feel like and maybe it's just my perception is like that used to be like such a thing. Like all my friends at the barn, we all worked for trainers and we like worked our butts off all day long. And then we got a lesson at the end of the day and it was brutal and we learned so much. But is it still a thing as much or has it gone away?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good question. It's just changed. I mean, and I think part of the responsible, I don't know, I think society a little bit is responsible for it. Like it's just so expensive to live and it's so expensive to do anything. Like I totally understand, like not everybody has the luxury to kind of just go out and work. I mean, when I was working student, I didn't get paid a dime. Like it was like, you're lucky to be here and have this exposure and you will work 16 hours a day,
Yeah, pretty much.
But I just also feel like it's so important. There was a girl who worked for us who came out on an internship. And I just remember it was like the first in my professional, like young professional career, it was the first time that somebody had come out in an intern position. We were really excited because I was like, oh my gosh, like we can give this person everything that we never received as working students or like that I never received as a working student, And I was just so surprised because it was like, she was just didn't really want to work. And it was like, I'm going to take a lunch break. And I'm like, well, I don't ever feel like I would deny someone a lunch break, but what is a lunch break? Like,
Right,
no,
exactly.
you know, like, I think I'm a nice person, but you asked for it now. And now I'm like, wait a minute, like, what's going on? And it's changed so much. And, I remember the advice, she asked me for advice at the end of the summer. And I said, I think it would be really beneficial to work for somebody who doesn't really care about you. And I said, and I mean that in the most honest, like, way. It's not that you don't deserve that, but I just think that there's something so important working for somebody that is like, this is how my program runs. This is where you will fit into it. Like, turn them out, let's go, and I just think it gives you a really good basis for how you want to run your business, or it also gives you the foundation to understand where you maybe want to fall in the industry. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think paid internships are much more of a thing now, or like trades where maybe you bring a horse, get paid a little bit. But I mean, I've just seen that and I don't want to be that person that generalizes everybody, but I've just seen it really change. Like, yeah, there's just a different, I think it's almost like glamorizing what the horse industry has to offer a little bit, and not necessarily from like people don't have the work ethic or the drive or the want, but maybe they thought it was going to be something really, really different. And then maybe that grit and passion isn't there to like carry them the rest of the way. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I haven't personally, I mean, I haven't personally found like a great working student situation, and we went in really optimistic, and, I think it's always an option, but I don't know. It's a great question. It should be, it really should be.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, like like learning just how tired you could be and
Right.
still do a good job, and yeah, and working for people that were grumpy. I mean,
Right.
all of that, like that, those life lessons are so valuable, and I don't know, kids miss out on that.
They totally do. And I feel like it does. It just kind of glamorizes the industry, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, this is physical labor and someone's doing it. And I think that's what's hard from like the professional or owner's perspective. It's like, okay, well, why are you here and I'm doing your job? Because there's a reason,
Somebody's got to scoop the poop. Like,
someone's got to do it. I mean, I was down there at 4 a.m. this morning cleaning stalls, and so it's like, it's kind of a rite of passage. And I think it does, at the end of the day, really help you figure out as an individual where you want to be, how hard you want to work for it, because it's hard, and nobody does horses to make money. That's like, nobody, you want to make money, you're only a horse dealer. Like, you don't actually own any horses. You're making commissions. You don't even own them. You don't see them. You don't do nothing. Like, that's it. You're connecting the dots. Like, I don't know. You don't do horses for money. You do it because you love them and for passion. And so I think that's why we see a lot of burnout, exhaustion, fatigue, all of that. So,
yeah. So you said you were down there at 4 a.m. doing horse chores.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think you get out? I mean, I have 3 horses and I do all the care.
Yeah.
And I love it. What do you get out of doing the care part?
So it's been one of the hardest things, I think, of growing our business, is that when we first moved here, Noah and I, like, we did everything. I mean, we cleaned all the stalls, we fed all the horses, we watered it. I mean, it was just like, we did everything. And it's very quickly, it's like, you can't do everything, especially when you have 30 horses, like it's too much. But what I love, like when I have the time and the ability and it works in the scheduling, is just reconnecting, even just to our management side. Like, I love, and I also think it's a good example, that the same way that you want your working student or your employees to work hard, I think it's also just really good for people to see, like, no, I know how to do this. Like, I can do this. I have done this. I've done it a lot. Like, I promise you, I've not forgotten your job and the importance of it. And, it's integral to getting our operation to run. But I do think also it just keeps us like very in tune with our horses. And that's one thing, like we have, staff and help here, but we groom our own horses. We're very hands-on. And so it is interesting. Like, we'll get horses in and people will say something like, that's not at all how they are, like in the stall. Like, you're so disconnected, and so it's I feel like we found a good in between, but I think it's important. It's hard to turn that piece of it over. to other people, like it's a control thing too, I think. But
but when you have 30, you have to, can't do everything.
No, you can't. So no, it's important. I just think it keeps us all very honest.
So then you have like horses that are in your barn for training. And I think I saw something about retirement. Like, tell us a little bit about like all the things that you have going on at Raptor C.
Yes. Double Raptor C. So we have horses, they can, come in training. So we have those programs, Noah, myself. And then we're starting to branch. We've always had a couple of retirement horses. But again, it's about, I think, just maximizing our facility space and just our business models and what really we can offer. And I think we're offering retirement, or I call it retirement, and it is retirement, but we'll do select rehabilitation. I don't love all rehab cases. It has to be a special one. Like we have one right now, horse came from New York and it's fun, but like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't love every rehab horse. But yeah, so it's great. It's like very hands-on, especially it's a good solution for people that maybe can't, like they need the worry-free experience and maybe their horse like needs the medication every day or whatever. I mean, that's like, we do all the coordination, we handle the horse every day. So it's been fun. I mean, also I think it's nice to offer older horses like a soft spot. So so we're branching into that a little bit, not too much. And then hopefully some events, in the future. Again, I think just as a landowner, it's just diversifying a business model and, having your stuff work for you a little bit. So we're hoping to kind of branch into that. Noah, and myself, we both got married at our property. So I don't think we want to do weddings, but it would be fun, to we've had some outreach about just like different photo shoots and branding shoots, especially.
Oh yeah. Cool.
So just some stuff like that, but that's pretty much it. I mean, it's obviously the core, like the meat and potatoes of what we do as horses. So that will always remain true.
Cool. So one avenue I wanted to explore a little bit is like, I love how like right on your website, you have your mentors highlighted. And so talk a little bit about, I mean, I know like maybe it's a generational thing. Like I feel like the older generation had had reservations about like feeling like they wanted to make it on their own and they didn't necessarily want to use somebody else's name. But I feel like now people have a better awareness about like the mentorship relationship. And so sort of like, so tell me a little bit about where you guys are coming from in putting your mentors, right up front.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially in the horse world, just to know kind of how we learned. I think that's a big piece of it because I think that does some speaking for itself. But I think also, I don't know, it's a little bit of a respect thing too. Like, we put the time and the work in to achieve it, but I mean, we didn't do it alone. And I just think that people should acknowledge that. And I think not everyone can be the most like grateful, appreciative, or respectful, I think maybe to their mentors, or how much people have to sacrifice to facilitate an educational experience for another person. So that's really, I mean, honestly, that's really what it is for Noah and I, is just, these are the people and obviously there's so many people, but there's too many to list. And, but yeah, really like and I think who we continue to aspire to be, and like, people who you just continuously respect. And I mean, everyone, like I said, there's so many people on the list, but everyone I can think of as a mentor to myself, it's like every time I'm in front of them or I ride with them, I learn more. I learn something new. And I think that's a lot of it as well, is just like, keep going, keep learning. Like I know some professionals that they don't get lessons. They don't, do something. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm always like calling, especially like Jeff Cook lives out here in Oregon. And I'm always like, when are you coming through again? Like, you got to come give me a lesson. And just, it's just so important to continue that education. So I think that's a part of that acknowledging your mentors as well as, who do you continue to aspire to be and learn from while paving your own way and making it your own. We all are individuals, obviously, but we draw from all these people. So I think that's a lot of it for us.
Cool. I'm not quite sure how to ask this question, and we touched on it a little bit, but do you think that, or how do you, when you're competing, how do you hold your horsemanship principles like in your heart when you're competing? How do you feel like, well, you already said that you're not a super competitive person, so you sort of already answered that, but can you speak any more on that? Because I feel like a lot of our folks, I mean, they sort of hold the horsemanship separate from competing. Mm-hmm. And then they sometimes get to a point where they want to go do something, but it feels like maybe they're compromising something to go compete. So, I've gone and judged at like equine trail sports events, and like how that is organized is super, like it allows the horse owner to make decisions based on how the horse is. But I know not all competitive areas are like that. So this isn't really a question, but maybe.
No, I don't know. I see
what I'm asking.
I totally do. So I think the first step of it, and it's really interesting. It's like a 2-part for me because it's personally and professionally, because so I treat them the same, but there's like the aspect of like when I'm physically in the ring competing, and then how I prepare my clients for it, and because I want the same outcome. And the most important thing to me, I think, is, and it might be easier in the hunter jumper world for me because it's so political, and it's so like, we're getting to this point of just there's a huge gap between kind of, to be like really playing the game at the top level versus what a lot of the people do. And especially when you do something like hunters, where it's 100% judged, right? Mm-hmm. It's a completely judged sport. So it's just personal opinion. What's the judge looking at? Did he look down when that person missed a lead change? Did he not? Like, what are you looking for? And so the first thing that I always mentally do and is just remind my clients is like, everything that we do is based, like our philosophy for riding, it's in everything we do, right? It's how we care for them. It's how we manage them. It's how we ride them. It's how we make decisions for them. It's not a specific exercise or a specific discipline or anything. It's just how we handle horses and how we ride horses. So we kind of start there. And then the next thing is I just try to tell them, like, we're here, and success, like we can define success for you based on like how your horse comes out. Like if we have a really young horse, like, we have to define success for that horse. Like we can't let the noise, distract us from what it means to build this horse up. Or you have like a nervous client, it's like, okay, we're not going to go win the class today, but like, if you can make it around 8 jumps, that's great. So let's make that our goal. So I really try to reorient people a little bit and not get them so fixated on a ribbon. Now I know that, that's not attainable for some people because they are in it for a ribbon and they need an outcome. But for me, like, I mean, when I was really competitively showing, I honestly just really tried to, like, mentally, that's how I had to operate. I could not, I didn't have like horses. Like I had horses I always had to think about because they had problems. That's why they came to me. So I didn't have the luxury to not do that. But I just had to, for me to stay in a space where I ultimately was the most competitive, I just had to really put my horses first and give them the best ride and understand like pressure can lead to things, but pressure, we need to make sure that it's positive growth and not setting us back, because I just believe like there's no result worth sacrificing your horse for. And so I just think if we're really clear on kind of those principles, then the rest we can work out. I know I've been really fortunate in my upbringing and my foundation that, I was exposed to a lot of competitive atmospheres. So I was able to like blend that world together a little bit, where I didn't have this huge shift, like I'm at home or I'm in the warm-up ring and now I'm in the show ring. But I have clients and in some instances, you know, myself, where like you'll go in and you're like, holy, like I'm in the show, right? Like this is go time. And you have to be really, I encourage a lot of people to do sports psychology and really to kind of talk through that, because it's really mental. It's just so mental. And it's like, if we can control our mind, I think then we are in a better place with our horses, and then we can make better decisions. And then I think the last thing would be like, don't be afraid to be different. I mean, you know, we're the only horses at most shows in a rope halter. Like, you know, I mean, and I will say this, I mean, this is, you know, I'm definitely not afraid to speak the truth. And I've had people, you know, I've had stewards come up to me because I'm doing a one rein stop and be like, what are you doing to that horse? And I can't tell you how mad I get. Like, I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, this horse was getting bothered. Maybe it's like baby that was just imported. Like, I'm saving this horse from himself. And also, like, I don't want to break my neck. So that's cool too. But we're going to do this. But, you know, maybe in the warm-up bring over, someone's in draw reins and this horse is lathered. They've been riding for 45 minutes. And you're really going to sit here and talk to me about it?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, kind of to your question earlier, was like, that's kind of when I get like, okay, you're at a crossroads. Do you let the weight of the industry and that kind of moment where you're like, man, the people responsible for the welfare of our horses don't even know what this is. Do we let that win, or do we say, nope, we're going to keep going? And I remember one moment clearly that I had a steward come up to me. I was on a young horse, like fresh off the boat, basically. And anyways, they were just like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing's even happening. So I'm so confused, right, about what's going on. And I just remember being like, if they card me, I will take this up. I will be so loud. I will scream it from the rooftops. Like, I will go affect change at the highest level, because to me, it was just the fundamental issue of, you don't know what I'm out here trying to accomplish, and you're the one making the judgment calls on what's okay for our horses in like this competitive environment, when, by the way, they need you to be making the right calls, because some professionals aren't, you know?
Right.
And so it's, yeah, I know we got a little like, I got a little down a rabbit hole there, but
Well, but no, but so like but that's because they're seeing something that's outside of the norm that they don't
Yes.
understand. And so the
Yes.
only way to really
is to talk about it.
affect any change is to show up.
Yep.
And to be different.
And to be different and to do it. And so you can't worry about it. Like, for me, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be authentic to who I am. I'm standing up for the principles that I believe in. And if I really have a problem with something, I'll go deal with it. But I really, like, when we're at shows or we're doing stuff, like, our barn operates as a unit. It's like, cancel the noise out. Do you, and make calls on your horse. Like, don't be afraid to be different, to change things. Like, if you need to, I mean, like, we're at an English show, you need to take a Western saddle and throw it on. Like, if you need to go do groundwork, do groundwork. If they have a fit that you have a flag, explain it and be like, I'm in the lunge ring. What's any different? Like, okay, if these people can wait, then, like, I don't care what they do. Like, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it, you know? And so I think it's a little bit that, like, stick to it, and just don't be afraid to be a little bit different. It's okay. And most people aren't even watching. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, we get really self-conscious about it, but it's like, most people aren't even paying attention.
Yeah. But you're also taking students who, like, you've empowered them with the knowledge to understand what they're doing. They're not just doing it because you told them to.
Yeah. Right. And so, that's definitely, that's a really fun one now, especially like I've got some clients that go back and forth from other areas, and, you know, and they'll call me and be like, oh my gosh, you're just never going to believe what like happened. And I would never, and I'm like, oh, I can believe it, you know? But and it does make it kind of, it's challenging. And I think it can be isolating. And my hope and goal would be that it becomes less isolating for people to be different, do different, and in turn, just like take more time with your horses, take more time with your clients. Like, it's just, it's a very, I don't know, it's a very interesting road.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling that you and I could probably visit all day long, and hopefully we'll get to visit again in the future. But is there any question that I didn't ask you that is a topic that we should talk about now before I let you go?
Oh my gosh. No, now I'm just all worked up about stewards, like not even knowing what they should know. I don't think so. I think we covered so many points, and yeah, super grateful for the opportunity to finally meet you, but B, kind of talk about all of this, and yeah, hopefully spread a little bit of, share a little bit about our business and the change we're trying to affect. And there's a lot of exciting things coming for it. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll stay tuned and see what you got going on.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.